Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Stand for the pledge.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marie, would you take roll, please?
Councilman Nelson.
Here.
Councilwoman Campbell. Here. Councilman Hutchins.
Here. Here. Moving on to approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the August 16th meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to approval of the bills for September 6, 2022. Is there a motion to approve deposits from August 15th through August 31st in the amount of $416,146.80?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve accounts payable for September 6th in the amount of $35,579.36?
Missing that total.
Page.
The last page here, John, on the one that's like that.
We got 37,579.
Six. Okay, looks like there's a discrepancy. I assume that's just a typo. 37.
I have 36.
Make a motion to amend the accounts payable and
Press on.
of the total amount of 37,579.
Second with discussion.
Go ahead, discussion.
Yeah, Georgia, the Amex, all these Amex charges for individual things like pool noodles and paper towels and all that has been coming through the proper channels and getting approved because it's a individual Amazon purchases with the department heads having their Amex cards now.
All of the American Express charges in this have the department heads, only have the department heads approval. Now, the dates on these, the dates of each purchase is different than the date shown on the accounts payable. The invoice date in the accounts payable is the date of the American Express bill, not the date that the individual charges are posted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve net payroll for August 18th in the amount of $42,980.39?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve net payroll for September 1st in the amount of $39,614.93?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve transmittals for August 18th in the amount of $14,614.30?
Motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve transmittals for September 1st in the amount of $12,570.62? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. First is we have a certificate of good standing for the town of Saratoga from the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. Verifying that our municipality is a good member in standing for the 2023 fiscal year. Next up is Renee Snyder, County Assessor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilmen and councilwomen. Thank you for giving me a couple of moments of your time. My name is Renee Snyder. I'm the current Carbon County Assessor up for reelection. In the forums and all the campaigning that I went through for the primary, it was brought up several times that the public at large does not understand how we come up with their values. And I'm here just to try to explain just a little piece of it and then to ask for input for what you all believe. You know this community better than I do, and what I can do to help maybe remedy some of this uneducation. When we value property, we do all of Carbon County. We have almost 15,000 parcels that we're responsible for in my office. We start with replacement cost new, less depreciation, and then there's a multitude of different things that go into the final value. What type of building it is, the quality of construction, the condition, interior information, porches, decks, outbuildings, and the land. And then it also factors in the neighborhood it sets in, the land economic area that it's in. So, it's not a simple, steadfast, one thing fits all. It's a very complex analysis that our computer system helps us with to get that final value. We're audited twice a year, once by the State Board of Equalization and once by the Department of Revenue. And either all my numbers are in compliance and they're happy and they sign off, or if I was not in compliance with my individual mass appraisal and with the land, then they could put me on a work order, a work plan, or they could even remove me from office if I just went, I'm not doing nothing here. So, I have people that I have to answer to. It's not that we in the assessor's office just set property values however we want. I have to take a second oath that says I will be fair and equal and I will not be intimidated or, make your house one value and make his house a different value if you have similar houses. So I'm here to ask for your input, what I can do in your community to help educate the public.
Solve all the world's problems tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say, my initial thought would be, when you send out your valuation stuff, have a little flyer in there. And I think you guys even do sometimes have kind of how the values were assessed or how they came up to them. But
Yeah, every April, by the fourth Monday in April, by statute, I have to mail out notice of assessments. And that gives an estimated amount. It shows you last year's value and this year's estimated value. And that opens a 30-day appeal period where people can call, come in and ask questions. We'll sit down with them and show them on our computer in our system how we come up with each value that we have. So, yeah, we do mail out the notice of assessments in April.
as far as like raising awareness, that would be the only thing I could really think of. I don't know if anyone else has any ideas.
No, are we as Carbon County, or each of the counties rates assessed differently or depending on what part of the state you live in, or are we kind of an average tax rate for this county?
Each county has, because we look at sales of properties, we have to look at every sale that happens in Carbon County. And, the Department of Revenue installs our cost tables. And then the Department of Revenue and the State Board of Equalization say, I have to be within a specific range to be in compliance. When I campaigned 4 years ago, I said I would keep property taxes as low as I possibly could, and my overall statistic is 96. The lowest I could be is 95. So each county, depending on the COVID influx, some it hit worse than others. Carbon County saw some of that COVID influx, so it did raise, cost tables raised tremendously this year. But to say we're similar to another county, you can't really compare us. We are the fourth lowest in the state of Wyoming for property taxes.
Renee, I just have another question since you, are you guys sending out the bills for 2020?
For 2022,
Yeah, sorry.
the treasurer is responsible for mailing out the tax bills and collecting the taxes. Normally, her statutory deadline is like October 10th, somewhere around there. So she may get to mail them out earlier. I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
So is there that computer program that helps you with your deals? How much does that lag the market? And what I'm asking, I guess I get for people when a poor economy, when maybe the prices start dropping, and yet the evaluations are based on a bunch of houses that were sold at the peak. Does it only get updated once a year, or does it get updated monthly, or how does that work?
It's once a year. It's however it is January 1st, and then my analysis starts then. So we look at sales that happen from January 1st to December 31st. We work a year ahead. So right now we're working in 2023, but we're using 2022 sales. So it's, essentially we're lagging a year behind.
On the stuff for the state, the number of people that appeal their taxes, is that something that they track as well?
Yes.
Is it?
They do. And Carbon County has not had an official appeal in many, many, many years, since like 2012. We do typically 100 to maybe 250, kind of give a broad desk appeals, which is where we talk to people during that appeal period. We have to log anytime we talk to anybody, and the state tracks all that.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts from the council? I appreciate you coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next under correspondence was the Carbon County Visitor Council 2022 annual report. Should have a pamphlet with that in front of you. And a letter to the clerk. Just to highlight a couple things from that letter. Said it was a great year for tourism in Carbon County. We had many visitors to and through our wonderful county, spending $227.6 million, generating $14.1 million in tax revenue, which keeps taxes low for local residents. Carbon County hospitality businesses provide 1,580 jobs for people in Carbon County. This past year, the CCVC also made a return to travel shows by participating in 3 domestic and 2 international shows and hired a sales and event marketing specialist. I don't know if there's anything else that popped out on that letter to anyone else, but sounds like tourism was still doing really, really well in Carbon County. Next up is a letter from Carol Beach that was requested to be read. It says, to the members of the Saratoga Council, as summer comes to a close, I have a few questions for the council regarding the Oddfellows Park and Town Flowers. Bridge Street Bargains provided the money for the planters in Saratoga for many summers. However, due to the apparent inability to keep the flowers watered adequately by the town, we have not continued this very worthwhile project. Understand that due to hot temperatures and wind, it is difficult to do so. However, I hope this can be addressed in the future with either different flowers or different flower containers that hold the water. Most towns in the state of Wyoming have beautiful flowers gracing their streets. This summer, we purchased the flowers for the pots near Town Hall, and with the help of the town, including Brendan Marie, the flowers have been watered. Several of the Bridge Street volunteers watered on the weekends. Bridge Street Bargains paid $300 for the flowers and new liners. At the end of the season, we would like the liners returned to us so they can be used next year. Several years ago, Bridge Street Bargains improved the Oddfellows Park with tree trimming, gravel, 4 new trees planted, and painted the picnic tables. Cost was around $5,000. This was a special project initiated by Julie Evans, the board, and myself. Soon after that, the town accepted the park, and it is my understanding it was to be maintained by the town. However, this year, no mowing has been done. I spoke to John Winters about this, and he said that it was not part of the contract for maintenance. Several of our volunteers, one over 80, have attempted to keep up with the weeks, but as it is noted, the park is poorly maintained and an eyesore. I'm asking the council to address this problem. I'm truly speaking on behalf of myself as a board member as a former board member of the Bridge Street Bargains, former president and now treasurer. Thank you, Carol Beach. Last up under correspondence.
To hit that, can we discuss that a little bit?
Yeah.
Is there a reason that wasn't put on the
Well,
maintenance
there's
list?
the park was never identified as an official town park. We had actually gone and we had provided them with some gravel and provided them with some materials to help clean that up, but it was never passed, I believe. If it did, it would have been way 4 or 5 years ago as an official town park. And so that's why it's not included in any of the part of maintenance that we do, whether we do with a contractor or whether we do with our staff.
I think it's since I've been on the council that we had that discussion with Bridge Street Bargains and took responsibility for it, with the commitment being that if they made the initial investment and did those things with the trees and the bench, that we'd keep it up. I don't remember when that was. If that rings a bell, being last year or prior to that, but
I was thinking that was summer 2020,
okay,
maybe before then.
could very well be. I mean, that sounds about right. Either way, I guess I think we're not holding up our end of the commitment, it sounds like. And so what do we need to do to get back on track? I mean, obviously it's too late for incorporating it into the maintenance contract to have a subcontractor do it for this year, but can we address whatever's lacking over there? Like a fall cleanup or something, go through and weed it out before winter?
I'd like to see the commitment. And then if that is true the case, then we will definitely take care of it. So, but I'm not sure that that was ever passed by the council, that was going to be an additional town park, is what I'm getting at.
So John,
The-
go ahead.
Well, my memory of the conversation, and I could be wrong, like I said, this is before my time on the council. I think it was at the meeting for something else. Was the Oddfellows used to take care of that park, and then Bridge Street Bargains came in to take it over, but I guess I don't recall the town making a commitment one way or another. I guess
That's what I'm saying, is that if that is the commitment that the town made, I don't remember either. I thought that the town was willing to help out, do whatever we could, but it wasn't going to be designated as a town park. If it is designated as a town park, then we definitely will either include it in the maintenance contract or take care of it.
What is town right of way, correct?
It is in the middle of the street. Yeah.
So I guess the alternative to the town maintaining it would be to let it go. Is that, does anybody see an alternative? Why wouldn't we maintain it? I guess, let me just ask that. Why wouldn't we maintain it? It's town right away. We have a responsibility to weed, mow our right of ways, properties in front of town hall and public works department, things like that.
So John, is there, you have a contract for the people that take care of the parks, is that right? Is there any budget for this, or can we maintain this thing without going too far out of pocket? So I would like to see us if
23 fiscal year. I mean, it isn't part of their contract,
right,
but their contracts,
expires here shortly.
done, so, I think it's just if the council, it's the council's directive that this be considered a town park, then, we'll put it in the 22-23, parks contract, and we'll make sure that the public works department takes care of it as needed.
So I would like to make a motion, if I could, that the town take care of the maintenance on it for the rest of the year, and then include it in next year's budget, so that it can be accounted for moving forward.
I'd second that.
Okay, any discussion? Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say one other thing. I know I've had a couple of people mention out here along the street. I know last year we had an individual that I think pulled weeds and kind of kept that cleaned up. And that too is town property, and that would be something that I would ask if it could be amended into the motion, that, maybe that be incorporated to it as well.
Would the council member amend his motion?
To include stuff out here.
Yes, I will amend my motion to include the stuff out there.
I will second. As amended.
Okay, any other discussion? Did you have something?
My only other thought, is just, would it behoove us to go back and try and look for those minutes? If there's consternation about what the commitment was or wasn't supposed to be. I mean, I suppose if we're all on the same page, that this is how it's gonna be moving forward, doesn't matter, but that was the only thing I wanted to bring up. Want to just move forward?
Yeah, my recommendation would be just to move forward with it and have it part of the parks maintenance contract for next year.
Yeah, I think so. It'd take forever to find it, probably in the minutes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up is the Riviera Motor Lodge Open House with music, food, and drinks, September 8th, from 4 to 7. Marie, did they give you a flyer or anything?
They did not. They just came in and wanted to just let you know that they would love for you to make it to their open house.
Okay. And was there any other correspondence?
No, there isn't.
Okay, we'll move on to council comments. Okay, items from the public? Okay,
Can I simply ask a press question?
go ahead.
Are we going to make any, I see nothing on the ballot or nothing on the agenda about a decision that you carried over, I thought, to tonight's meeting from last meeting about whether or not you were going to put the Spalding empty seat on the ballot. Are we going to address that tonight?
Yes, it's under new business.
Okay.
Any other items from the public? Okay, we'll move on to reports from town hall, or reports from departments, starting with town hall. First up is the never forget.
So John contacted, WC and they will have committed to have the design finished by Friday of this week. And, I guess that includes the RFP, John, for the curb and gutter.
As I explained to the mayor earlier, in the contract that they signed, it doesn't specifically state that, so what I would do is take a trip over there and talk to those guys face to face and make sure that that's part of that deal and that be done quickly.
And if I remember right, the letter proposal they sent to us was to
With that.
include the RFP, correct, in that cost?
Yep.
And the contract itself, it wasn't included.
So the design is done by Friday or the RFP is done by Friday?
Design.
The design is done for Friday. That, new design without the additional property.
Okay.
And then John, you
Yeah, I thought about this. I'd reached out to irrigation contractors. Our town policy is to try to get 3 quotes whenever possible. And so I did reach out to 3 contractors, Quality Landscape, Stillwater Landscape, and Burning River Irrigation, all local contractors. I did receive 2 quotes back. One was emailed to me, the other one was delivered here to town hall. And so I just made copies of those and provided them to you guys, but, quick and dirty is the, quote we received from Quality Landscape was for $32,710. Couple of notes on there. It's not including the 2-inch water tap that's furnished by the town of Saratoga, including the backflow and wintering valve and on and off main valve. The electrical is to be furnished by others to a 110 volt connection. That is, as we had discussed about where the scope would kind of start and stop. So again, that price is $32,710. The other quote we received was from Stillwater Landscape. For the sprinkler system, $29,466.40. That's based on the drawings I provided. Quote is estimated with providing a minimum 1-inch meter, tap, pit, vault, backflow preventer, and curb stop provided and installed by the town. Not included is any sod, fill, rock planting, etc. So I think they're essentially apples to apples. And we have these quotes to consider to move forward with the irrigation system, should we choose to do so.
John, the Stillwater excluded sod, rock, fill material, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Do you know if Randy had any of that in his?
No, I asked them both simply for the irrigation system. If the town would install.
So it's apples and apples here.
The town would install the pit up to the backflow preventer. And they would take it off from there and be responsible for the design and however they needed to arrange all the heads and mains and zones. I didn't stipulate any of that.
Okay.
But no, long and short, no landscaping on top of it. I think we would do that under separate contract.
Okay.
Any questions? I don't know if you guys are ready to take any action on this tonight, but any questions that you'd like me to take back to either of the bidders?
I don't have any.
I guess one more comment I would make is I don't believe Stillwater is prepared to do it yet this year. I think they have too much on their plate to do it yet this fall. I don't recall whether Quality Landscape had the capacity to do it yet this year. Either way, I think as it dovetails in with the curb and gutter. Probably, we had a discussion several months ago about, do we just forget about the curb and gutter and move forward with irrigation side? With that was ever decided, and at this point, hoping that we're only a few weeks away from having an RFP out on the curb. I think it would probably make the most sense to go ahead and do that curb, and then we can put the irrigation heads, the sprinkler system right up against the flat work.
Yeah,
So,
and we can put sleeves underneath the curb if, future.
yep. So, again, I don't have I'll make a motion if you guys want to move forward, but I'm certainly not trying to put anybody under the gun.
But I take it to the next committee meeting for the park and
Perfect.
get that input from them.
When is that,
Someone yet, but I'll do so after the meeting.
That'd be great. Thanks, Euron. Okay, next up is the State of Wyoming Workers' Comp Report. Checking to see if we're still making progress there. I believe at the last meeting,
Haven't done much since the last meeting. Been pretty busy with other stuff,
okay,
at least for the public works department. I don't know about the other departments.
So John, at the last meeting, we talked about, there was the electrical. Did we get the electrical resolved?
Yeah, I think I toured around two contractors. One of them gave us a bid right away, and the other one has chosen either not to, or I've contacted them 2 or 3 times and said he was going to put in an estimate, I should say. And never has. So found basically one contractor that would do that work for us, unless Marie knows anything different.
okay.
Can we get a copy of the quote that we've already got? And we can get that out to us, that'd be good, so at least we have an order of magnitude.
Okay, moving on to Valley Village Daycare. So I did email and update the council. So I did meet with Ellie. It was after our last council meeting. Where we left that was, there was a number of items in the lease that they had questions about. Sound like they were gonna have their attorney, redline the lease. There's certain things they found in their inspection of the property that need to be addressed at some point, and that was something that they were gonna talk to the council about. There was something that a cost that the town was willing to incur, or something that they would incur. My recommendation to her was, just put everything, bring us a complete proposal of what you're wanting to do, and then we can negotiate it from there, to determine cost, all that. Obviously, that wasn't anything that we really budgeted, so I don't know how much we can do with it from this budget from this fiscal year. But she's working on doing that, and as soon as I get anything, I'll email it to the council. So, moving on to Ordinance 864, second reading. This is ordinance that we read in whole, I believe it was 2 council meetings ago. I missed it, and I didn't have it on last month or the last council meeting as for second reading. But it was read in whole at the first or at the count, or was read in whole in the first reading on the 2nd day of August, that council meeting. So is there a motion to accept ordinance 864 in title?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we've got special event permit for Fall Festival. Sarah, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
The rec department is hosting a fall festival October 1st and 2nd. October 1st, we'd like to use Veterans Island for a 5K run walk that will start at 9 o'clock and a kids carnival with games, vendors, arts, possibly a chili cook-off and maybe even barbecue. We are anticipating close to anywhere from 100 to 250 people. We'll have support staff and volunteer of 5 to 8 people. This is just a nice get together for families in Saratoga, which we will then extend to Sunday, the 2nd. We will move location over to Platte Valley. Do you need me to do these separate or do you want them to do it all?
You can update us on both first, it's fine.
We'll move over to the community center parking lot for a pickleball tournament. We'll have 6 courts set up, some cornhole, vendors, and just kind of a fundraiser that we're hoping to put together this year. The proceeds will go to benefit the Chamber of Commerce and the Saratoga Rec Department. As we know, the lake is not, we're not able to host, or the chamber won't be able to host the fishing derby, so we're hoping that this will help bring in some extra funds for them in lieu of that. So kind of where we're going with this.
So this is a collaboration between the rec department and Chamber of Commerce. One of the events.
It's going to be sponsored by the rec department and the proceeds will go benefiting the Chamber of Commerce. And they will partake in, volunteer opportunities and they will do similar to what they did for the 4th of July run where they will accept the registration fees and then they will write Saratoga checks.
Any other questions for Sarah? Is there a motion to approve the special events permit for the fall festival?
I make a motion that we approve both special event permits, pending sign off by the department heads and mission officers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, next up is the warm invoice for $37,352.88. This is our property insurance. Your motion to
Annual
approve?
budgeted
Yes, I believe so.
motion to
Second.
approve and pay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is food trucks. This was an item that was brought to council last meeting. Asked Marie to keep it on the agenda just so we can further discussion on it. I know I believe Marie had emailed everyone on the council, kind of, it was like an application that Laramie uses. That's something we want to consider looking at. Couple of the things that were talked about in that at the last meeting was, what about the guy selling peaches, or selling sweet corn, or someone's setting up to sell canned goods or whatnot. I guess the concern I have would be where does that stop? I know there's kids in town that sell farm raised eggs and do lemonade stands, and I don't think we want to be that overreaching, but it's just kind of an idea of where do we want to set those parameters if that's something we want to move forward with. And then is that something that we just want to incorporate into like a special events permit, or do we want to have a vendor fee or a vendor permit that if they're going to be selling any food items or whatnot, that they have to have their necessary licensing with whatever department is Marie, what is it for food?
Health department.
The health department. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm actually one of the vendors who participates in the farmer's market. And if it's okay with y'all, I would like to speak about that.
Yeah, go right ahead.
One of the things I noticed walking into this office this afternoon was that your assistant clerk has Girl Scout cookies in front of the office in the municipality building, correct? So what I would stipulate is, do you have permits for that person to sell inside of your building? Do you have a licensing for that? Or is it because that organization, which is global, is known for selling cookies to support little girls growing up into powerful women? The reason I bring that up is because some of us who are actually trying to provide our services, whether it be food services, honey, anything, most of it provided underneath the Wyoming Food Freedom Act of 2021. All of us following the rules. You ask for permitting, you ask for licensing maybe. Where would that permitting cost and licensing cost to us go? Would that benefit us in any way? The second thing I would like to point out and ask for, if we do pay those permits, is there any way that we could negotiate? For instance, you did talk about the park that is currently an eyesore by someone's standards. If we could operate inside of that park perhaps and police that park, that would take money off of, that would take some of the problems away from your city and fix some of the problems without any money lost. As long as we operate out there. Other things that I could possibly stipulate is that some of us, yes, we're trying to make something more of ourselves. I myself moved from California to Wyoming because I hate the lack of freedom in California. I came here specifically for the freedom that is offered, especially with the Wyoming Food Freedom Law of 2021. My occupation is a cook and a chef. These are the things that I know how to do. And I would like to give what I have learned and what I am capable of doing to other people. I make a little bit of profit on the side in the hopes that one day I can actually go to the inspector and say, I need this business to be inspected, licensed, and registered in the state of Wyoming to operate in the state of Wyoming, as well as the rest of the United States of America, to become something better than what I am now. Other people who operate out there are just trying to get a little extra money for the winter, maybe a little nicer present for the kids. And I can think of at least two people who operate out there that are just trying to make ends meet. If the permit is something that you wanted to go forward with, perhaps there's other ways we can go about it, or perhaps we need to find another way around it. Either way, I see it as a possible boon for your city, something that you can go forward and say, we have this. No other town in Carbon County, not even Rollins, the county seat, has a farmer's market. Not that I know of anyways. This could be something that would help you out in the long run just by participating in it, just by allowing us to operate with freedom. That's all we ask. Lastly, I would ask you to think about the people, especially when trying to discuss price. How much do they make in profit? How much space do they use? Do they have a table? Do they have an entire booth? None of us have food trucks. We're not trying to compete with the restaurants. Like I said, some of us are just trying to survive. These are all things that I would like you to consider when you make that. And honestly, especially with your consideration towards voluntary activity, specifically speaking, your comments on the person who was cleaning the sidewalks, if that's something we can do in order to operate without having to pay a permit or a licensing fee, many of us would be willing to do it without hesitation. That is all I wish to say.
Thank you.
Speak. When I got a hold of the town a few years ago about being a street vendor, selling my jams, I called the city town hall to ask if I needed licensing or permits. They told me there was nothing on the books for that. that the park I want to sit at, the Quezon Park, was owned by the American Legion. I got a hold of them, asked if it was okay if I gave a donation. I've been giving donations. I can't afford to pay a permit to do that. Our farmers market has gotten big this year, better than it's ever been. We're bringing fresh food to the valley, which you can't really get sometime at the store. They're coming all the way from Rock Springs, wasting their gas money to bring a service that this town needs. I would like you guys to just think about a permit for the farmers market, one permit where all vendors pitch into that permit. Look at our Saratoga days. There's no permits that I know of for any of us vendors. You know, we do the business expo, we pay for our space. We don't pay a permit. We're not licensed. Again, if you would check into the Food Freedom Act, it does explain a lot of things. We're not selling uncooked meat. We're not selling meat. We are making baked goods, crafts, jams, things that are all legally we can sell through the Food Freedom Act. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
So I just read up on the Food Freedom Act that it goes up. States originally started a lot of sell for fresh eggs, and then it was extended to homemade foods. Does the state require a license or any permits or anything?
Not that I've ever been told.
If I may, sir?
Yeah.
I have read up on the Food Freedom Act before I decided to start operations. What the state stipulates is that you can use any product as long as it is within set parameters. It does not have any meat. It does allow for the sale of chicken meat and eggs. But for instance, with my product, which is a hot sauce, I do not have to be licensed. I do not have to be inspected. I do not have to be bonded. I can make it in my own kitchen. But I take it upon myself as who I am and as a metric of what kind of chef that I am to ensure that that sauce meets the parameters so that it does not need to be refrigerated, for instance, so that it is healthy for anyone to use, so that it is completely vegan and I'm not trying to break any laws or any ordinances against this. I also make sure that the vinegar is at a 0.4 acidity, meaning that it is shelf stable, number one, and number two, can also be refrigerated. But 0.3, and the most important, is that it will not make anyone sick. We do this for our products because we actually care about our customers, not because we live in threat of the inspector coming to our house. Asking for a license or an inspection, that does violate the Wyoming Food Freedom Act if you read.
And if I recall, the chamber really wasn't attacking the farmers market. It was mostly the vendors who were setting up in Family Dollar parking lot, competing directly with the businesses in town. And I think that was the point of the chamber in representing the restaurants in town. I don't think there was any mention of farmers market.
There are quite a few rumors going around that they were going to start permitting and licensing of all street vendors and the farmers market. That's why everyone's concerned.
I don't remember farmers market being part of the conversation.
Well, I think it was brought up when they were talking about, selling peaches or whatnot and the farmer's
That
market.
one, but yeah. I
guess-
consider that farmers market, but
Either way,
To the one point, or go ahead, Rod.
but the comments you both have made are excellent feedback for us as we're trying to navigate through what the right thing to do. Right? And just to be clear, there hasn't been any decision, so any rumors that are running rampant ahead of, the council making any decision or nothing but that. There hasn't been any decisions made to start permitting or enforcing the farmer's market or jams or anything like that. There was a discussion at the last meeting and we're still very early in figuring out how to move forward, but because you guys are here and giving us feedback and the information that you have, that's tremendously helpful for us to make an informed decision.
Thank you.
So appreciate that. Just housekeeping note for the record, can we get you both to state your names for the record for
Sure.
your comments tonight?
I'm Dee Dee Martz. I'm the new ad sales rep for the Saratoga Sun. I run Dee Dee's Delicious Delights.
Sean Michael Carney, United States Army veteran, 12 years, combat tours. And what I try to bring is Red Desert Pepper Company from Rawlins, Wyoming.
Thank you, sir.
I think the,
Oh, sorry. Sean, how do I spell your name?
SEAN.
I think the one thing too, regarding specifically the farmer's market, that's especially permitted temporary event down. And I don't believe there is a cost for a special events permit. It would just be a matter of just a little bit of organization, filling out the permit. I think on the permit, you could probably address what days throughout the summer you're wanting to be there, so you don't have to fill out 12 or 13 of them or whatever. So I don't know that there's a issue with the farmer's market. It's just more of a heads up to the town that, hey, we're having a farmer's market. Just looking at the ordinances under 5.30.020, under C, farmer's market is a specially permitted temporary event that may be allowed provided they receive the approval of the Saratoga Town Council or an employee or employees designated by the town council.
Okay.
So. But I do appreciate the feedback though.
Okay.
And I'll admit to being ignorant of the Wyoming Food Freedom Act. I don't know, I've not heard of that before tonight. But I can assure you guys that this council, with the guidance of our attorney, when writing any kind of regulation or permitting procedure would not, we wouldn't do anything that would conflict with, state statute.
Okay.
You can rest assured that we'll respect the Wyoming Food Freedom Act.
Well, our main,
Certainly a safe promise to make.
excuse me, our main draw for the farmer's market is our produce lady. She brings some fruits, some vegetables over from Rock Springs. She is permitted and licensed. She's all over the place. So according to her paperwork, she is licensed to be there also, licensed and permitted.
We take all that into consideration as we forge ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the question for the council is, what's next or where do we want to go? Do we want to do some more research of other communities for vendors deal?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. That was something that I had on my to-do list since the last meeting that didn't happen. But I think that was kind of that was going to be my next step, was look at what Renee had sent out, look at some other communities, what's their process, and try not to reinvent the wheel. I mean, somebody else has already figured this out and find something that works for us.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, John. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Where do you want me to start? 2020?
Sure.
2020 is finally put to bed. The year is closed and we've moved on to 2021. So so you have the final June 30th, 2020 financial statement with the multitudes of adjustments that were made by, I think, 3 different CPAs. And this is kind of the end of it here. Any questions or thoughts about that? Oh, please notice the bottom of that first page, the cash allocations balance shows $1,249.49. And that came about in after period 14 of 2019. Those are the adjustments that were made by the first CPA and then reversed by the second CPA. And by the time that was all done, there was this $1,249 in the allocations. Didn't quite match up. What the current auditor, what Tim and I decided to do was complete 2020 as is, And then this $1,249 has been allocated and comes to a zero balance as of July the 1st of 2021, 2020. So the first day of the 2021 fiscal year, that is yeah, that's a zero balance. So one of the other reports here is the detailed ledger of the cash allocations, and that's been a conversation for quite a while about not knowing how the cash allocations happen between the funds, the water fund, sewer fund, airport fund, weed and pest, and the general fund. And so this is the first stab at a report that Cassell generates that shows each of the transactions that goes in between each enterprise fund into the general fund. And I'm still working on a report that gives a better picture, but this is the beginning of that process.
Obviously, this is from the period of 2019 and 2020.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
So, but in future periods,
Yes.
in current periods and future periods.
Yep.
There would be a motion and a record of a transfer made, at a council meeting approved by the council that would, I know it doesn't for these transactions on this report because of the time period it's being run for. But, for the last year, when we see the report for the cash allocations between enterprise and accounts, those will all apply to the transfers that are being made on the agenda.
No. These cash allocations are completely different. So we have a checking account, a general checking account that all the bills get paid out of.
Right.
That general checking account is made up of the cash that's generated by each fund, the general fund, the airport and so forth. And so this cash allocation simply is telling us how much of the money that's in the big general checking account belongs to which fund.
Okay.
And it doesn't have anything to do with being separated, but with WyoStar transfers or anything of that. It's just, here's all the cash and this is who owns that cash.
Okay.
Okay, and the allocations, they're almost done automatically. When I click the button that says allocate the cash, that's when it generates those allocations. Otherwise, you'll see that everything is out of balance until we make that cash allocation.
So once a month, you reconcile the checking account.
Yep.
And you get a new monthly report generated. That'll generate the allocations report, and ideally, that proof would be zero.
Yep, yes, ideally. And it is, and as of today, it is zero because I zeroed it out in July of 21 and it has remained zero up until today. Now, pardon?
Of 20?
Yes, whatever that year is.
Yep.
July of 2020. So in actual practice, I do a cash allocation every time I do an accounts payable. And in the cash allocation actually moves the money that we pay out as well as the money that we bring in. And so it keeps track of, so when we get a check from, for the airport for fuel flowage or something of that nature, and that check gets coded into the airport fund, but the actual cash goes into the general checking account.
Right. So
this cash allocation process that Cassell has actually keeps track of that $500,000 that we deposited and coded to the airport. It keeps track of how much of that $500,000 goes into the general fund. Does that make any sense at all?
I'm following.
It's a little difficult to put in words. I can see it in my head, but.
Well, I think the general fund balance for this June 30th, 2020 is what we expected to see it be at and is reflective of what our audit and auditors understand. And then one last question, we can move on, get out of the weeds here on finances, but this currently still, as of June 30th, 2020, there's still a due to, due from between weed and pest and general fund, correct?
There's still a what? I'm sorry?
A due to, due from, there's still a transfer that was made effective. And so when you get into the audit and fiscal year 21, that will get reversed. And so that money will be, I mean, we already made that motion. I know we're not talking about this time period right now, but that's something that's on your radar for
It was,
End of,
I'm trying to remember, it was 15 grand.
15,000.
Yeah, so there was a $15,000 loan from Weed and Pest to make sure that the general fund was solvent.
so if you'll look on page 5 of the allocation detail, you'll see down at the bottom where that $15,000 is recorded. So it's there and it's obvious. And I'll make sure and call that to the auditor's attention and make sure that we've addressed that.
Great. Perfect.
I'm personally really happy to see some of the mysteries no longer being mysteries.
You're doing a great job.
Anything else for us, Georgia?
So Marie, did we want to, have you got the invoice cloud in another slot or in this spot?
2 spots, 3 spots after.
Okay. So, nope, that's all I have unless you guys have something else. One quick one. I think that we're within a day of having all the documentation on the 21 audit to the auditors, and the ball will be in their court.
Great. Any questions for Georgia?
Yeah, are they gonna do interviews again this year, the auditors, or?
You know, I don't, they've gone into, we've submitted probably 90% of the information that they've asked for. And they have requested from those lists a whole raft of actual documentation. Whether they're going to go further down the road and be actually talking to people, I really don't know the answer to the question.
I would expect it, Ron, but I mean, they may
think
not
that's-
as well the same group, but I would expect every audit period they do that.
Okay. And then do you need any help getting information out to them, or are you guys caught up with their request for information?
No, not quite. This 2020 wrap up was a piece that had to be finished. I've got 2 more reports to send them, but this had to be completed first. And also those allocations had to be straightened out. The cash allocation had to be done. So I think it's pretty simple now, going forward. I actually have to go back and refresh my memory exactly what they asked for to make sure that I meet their requirements.
And just to kind of big picture, we had talked months ago about, 2020 wrap up, then the 2021 audit. Sounds like that's really close to them having everything they need. Have you had any conversations directly with them about timelines and stuff? I know we were hoping that we'd have 21 done sometime this summer, fall, and then 22 done before we were out of office. Do you think that's still reasonable?
So the last conversation I had with Tim was once they got all the stuff from 21, that they would get after it. And then it's just a matter of how long it'll take them to go through it. We know the 2021 audit's not going to be good.
Right.
We're expecting the 2022 audit to be better, but I think we'll be roughly more in their audit cycle. I think when we started the 2020 audit, we were kind of out of their normal audit cycle. I believe our contract with them was for 2 years. And so it might be worthwhile to have a motion to either engage them again or send out RFPs for audits.
Okay.
To move forward. But I believe our engagement with them was just for 2020, fiscal year 2021.
If you don't mind, yeah, let's get that teed up. I mean, that way, I think one of the discussions we had with Tim was that they're gonna get progressively easier. Not only because the finances themselves are becoming less convoluted, but also because they will have more
An
an
understanding.
understanding of where everything is and how it all works. So, hopefully we can get that done before the end of the year.
Do we want to, or is there a motion to request RFPs from different auditing firms, or do we want to ask them to submit another letter of interest or a proposal?
I think this 2022, fiscal year 2022 would be year 3 for them, right?
Yes.
I would feel comfortable if they're willing to submit a engagement letter proposal that we consider that.
Is there a motion to ask for an engagement letter from?
Yeah, you're gonna have to remind me of the actual firm name.
That actually just changed.
I can't remember all the names.
It is now Summit West CPA Group.
I make a motion to request a proposal from Summit West CPA Group for fiscal year 22 audit cycle.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope, that was a head shake.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will email Tim and ask for an engagement letter. Moving on to,
One last thing, just to state, just from talking to other municipalities, COG, Carver County Council of Governments, other entities in the county that, Joint Powers Board is kind of the same, both, auditing firms are all slammed, and it's becoming very hard to find people who have, firms who have capacity, to take on new or even service their existing clients. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's part of my motivation to, if they're willing to do it.
okay,
And then new council, when you guys are seated, I can recommend changing auditors every 3 to 5 years. Is a good standard practice.
I would add that we actually paid a little bit of a premium because of the amount of work it took these guys to get
Up to speed.
up to speed, and I think we would pay that same premium in the new auditor at this time, so I think it's a wise choice.
okay. Moving on to assist training. Marie, could you talk on this, please?
So the last assist training was canceled because of the lack of participants, but they have rescheduled for October 5th and 6th, and it's from 8:30 to 4:30. And assist is applied suicide intervention skills training. And this training is paid for by, I believe, Living Works and the Wyoming Department of Health. And so if this can assist you in your work, I would recommend going. And I do have a schedule if you would like to see it, and if you would like to RSVP, I can also get you that information as well.
Okay. Thanks, Marie. Next up is phone lines.
So I don't have anything in your packet for it, but I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that our phone lines will be porting to the new VoIP system this week. So we might lose a phone call or two, but it should go very smoothly. And we will have a phone training tomorrow at 11 a.m. in case anyone wants to refresh on the new phones.
Just for the public, no change in phone numbers.
No changing phone numbers. And this was a very long process because contacting all the different companies that we have businesses with, I guess I didn't realize how much of a maze everything was. And I would find out we had a new number or that number doesn't exist. We actually transferred it to another company. So it's finally coming to fruition now.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Next up is Invoice Cloud.
So do you want to start on this or do you want me to?
Well, you better start. I don't know where my notes are.
Okay. So I kind of touched base on this the last council meeting, and Invoice Cloud is a program that will speak to Cassell. And so let's say you wanted to find out how much you owed for your water bill. You can call into town hall and it will redirect you to a program that will take your information, tell you what your balance is, take your information to pay your balance, and apply that balance to Cassell, to where it would save us all that time from picking up the phone, talking to you, looking up your account, and inputting all that information. And also it saves on, I want to say, security, because on both ends, we don't know what's happening with that card information when it's being taken. So with this, I mean, this helps us immensely. Also with this, they also have a case study, I included it in your packet, of a town in Colorado named Elizabeth. And they've shown how with their program, people sign up for automatic payments, where people sign up. And then with that is also paperless billing. And so that would hopefully save us time and money, postage, paper, with the increase in signups with this too. So with this program, it would cost us $250 a month, but with the credit card fees, that would go to the customer. And then with paperless billing, they would charge us 20 cents per bill that they would send out by email or text, because they are, I guess, sharing in the cost savings with us.
Georgia, anything to add?
Sure. So as far as the charging us 20 cents per paperless bill that they send out, that saves us the cost of the postcard, the cost of having to print it, manipulate it, mail it, and the postage on that postcard. Do you know what postage is these days?
It's 38 or 40 cents.
Yeah, so it's going to save us 38 or 40 cents, thank you very much, and cost us 20 cents, which I think is pretty fair. And those postcards are horribly expensive. I couldn't believe how much they cost, but there you are. One of the things that other than D-Ron may not know is that the way that the credit cards payments have to get handled now is the customer can either pay by credit card. They log into our processor site. They put in their payment information, or they can call the office, and somebody here will input their credit card information for them. But that doesn't apply it to their account. All that does is just get their credit card and get their money in the bank. The next piece of that puzzle is that then Brenda, or D-Ron when Brenda's on vacation, then Brenda inputs their payment into Cassell manually. So she has to pull up each customer, double check their account number, double check the amount that they've paid, and enter that into Cassell to keep their utility account balance correct. So one of the things about Invoice Cloud being tied directly to Cassell is that there is no input on our side. We completely save all of Brenda's time in doing that input into Cassell. It happens at the time that credit card payment is taken. The other, I kind of like this company. As you couldn't tell. The other thing that they can do is we get several hundred bank generated checks where customers who don't want to write their own check will authorize the bank to write, and they physically write a check and they mail it to us, and then we have to input that into Cassell, which is a fairly time-consuming process. One of the things that Invoice Cloud can do is they intercept that check before it's actually been written at the point of the bank, and it turns into a digital payment, and then it is processed the same way their credit cards are. So all of those checks also then get automatically input into Cassell. It's always in balance. The deposit is made. The payments are credited to the customer's account, and it's very seamless from our perspective. And there are no errors that either Georgie or Brenda have to chase down. Mm-hmm. So it's an absolute win for Brenda's time, and it'll sort out. And I always end up getting kind of the things that really get tied into a knot, which is it takes me a tremendous amount of time to figure out that when we make an error, it can sometimes take an hour easily of my time to figure out the why and the where and the how to fix it, and it completely takes that off the table. So I'm way for this system.
And what would happen? Some payments would be processed, and if you didn't pay attention, if it was fully processed or it'd be pending, sometimes those pending charges would be denied, and you put them into the system, and we had to come up with a system to get the human error out of it. So
yeah. With the number of payments that get, that have to get processed, even a very small percentage of error just turns into a huge, into a huge time expenditure on both of our parts.
So the $250 per month could be offset also by the cost of postcards if people choose not to get a postcard. And do we have it budgeted anywhere?
So we did not purchase the accounts receivable module in Cassell.
Okay.
And I believe that was around 7,000, a little over 7,000 or so. And so we were going to use that for this, if possible.
How many modules have we bought this year so far? Because it seems like every other meeting we're buying another computer.
So at the start of the budget, I had the agenda and meetings module, the website module. And so with those two, I am currently working on both. And we will be seeing a new website in about a month. And then the agenda and meetings module will be seeing that in about a month too. I'm starting my third training tomorrow morning on that. We have timekeeping, which we just saw some information from them that they're trying to pull from us. So hopefully in the next month and a half that will start and help save us some time there, because I spent a whole day calculating timesheets the last payroll.
Pretty horrific.
So, but besides that, I think there's been 3.
Yeah, that's it.
This will be the fourth one.
This will be the 4th.
I'm going to tell a really quick parable. There's a construction company, true story, that decided they were going to go into the 21st century, and they started buying modules and computer programs, and all of the stuff sounded really good, and they put all their material invoices, they put all their timesheets, they went whole hog into this very well-known program and got it up and running, and they ran about 6 months to a year, and the computer told them that they were almost bankrupt. And so they decided to sell the company before they went completely bankrupt. And they sold the company for pennies on the dollar, cashed out their shareholders. And the company that bought them went back through their books after they bought them and found out that that company actually had $800 million in the bank. And the computer program was giving them a bunch of stuff, right? And I guess the point I'm making, I'm all for progress. I'm all for time sharing stuff. But it seems like we're buying something new every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And I keep hearing that, well, it's going to save an hour here and 2 hours there and everything. But then if we keep buying this, you guys don't have anything to do.
Well, that'd be nice.
So, but the point I'm making is progress, I think is very important, but are we modernizing at a manageable pace, or are we going to get to the point where nobody knows how to run all the programs and what's lying to us and what's not? And are we doing this intelligently, is my question.
So we've been working on procedures and policies this whole time. And with these new things that we have to do, that will also be in progress as well. Because I want to say with the past website, I mean, Brenda has been inputting information into there, and I have learned a little bit into it. And I believe Sarah's been inputting information for her rec department. But at the same time, I'm going through it now, trying to clean it up so we can move it to a new website. It is a maze, and I don't even know if I can even write a procedure on it because it's so complicated. And so I'm hoping, looking through the new module, that it'll be a lot more user-friendly. And so the next generation that comes in here, they can open up my binder with procedures and know exactly how to input information in there and make sure that everything is clean and just friendly to the public, to where they can get whatever information they need. I think that's the main goal, is just to make sure that everything's easily accessible, especially to the public, and we're not wasting time, taxpayer dollars, looking for things or making a mess because we're trying to rush through it because we have no time. So I think that's the main goal.
I have a question on that, Marie. Is it gonna be optional for people to use the online pay and the no paperless bill? It will be on, because there's a lot of people that don't have the capability, they don't have emails, they don't have computers.
Yep, it's all optional. Currently, we have a credit card company called IntelliPay that we're using, and so there's auto pay in that, but it's still optional.
I see.
Yep.
Will
We're just hoping you
IntelliPay
sign up, so it saves us a little bit more time.
Will IntelliPay go with the invoice cloud stuff?
Correct.
So is this all interdepartmental? So I use IntelliPay for a lot of my sports registrations, for my gym memberships. So is there an interdepartmental?
You'll migrate to Invoice Cloud.
Okay.
I guess with the Invoice Cloud, is there like a contract? Is it a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, or is it?
I'm not exactly sure.
I kind of, what I recall discussing, and I haven't seen any term on it, is that it can be a month to month. We can back out without penalty at any point.
You're right, because that's what you said the last
Yeah.
time. I do remember that now.
There's also not an upfront fee for this. The only fee is the $250 a month. And then if people convert to digital billing, to non-paper billing, then it would be per customer that switches over that 20 cent charge.
Well, then the system takes 3.25% from card payment, $1.95 from any e-checks and ACH transactions, 95 cents per call paid by the payer for inbound calls made to pay by phone.
And those are similar to the charges that customers are paying now through IntelliPay.
But have we done any math on? I get the argument that there's a time savings and an economy efficiency that's happening in town hall that I understand. But have we looked at what the lost revenue would be that offsets that savings?
Are you talking about the $1.95 or the 3.25%?
All of these different fees,
Okay.
whether it's.
Those fees are all paid by the customer, by the payor. If they choose to pay by credit card, then they pay those fees. We did look at the town picking up those fees and possibly the town absorbing those costs, but we couldn't fit it into the budget. So our customers that currently pay by credit card are accustomed to paying those fees. And so those fees will just remain in place on their side. The additional cost is that it is, to us, is $250 a month.
Because that percentage goes to IntelliPay right now, is that correct? That percentage goes to the processing company, it doesn't come to the town.
Yes, correct.
So Georgia, who pays the 20 cents for the paperless billing?
It goes on the.
We will pay the 20 cents for the paperless billing.
Okay, so we pay the 250 plus 20 cents. Then it's got the residential credit debit card, $3 or 3.25%. Who pays that?
The customer pays that.
Customer. What about is the e-check transaction, that's if you pay for e-check and not with a credit card?
Correct.
Okay, so that's $1.95
And the customer pays that.
for that option. And then it's got the miscellaneous fees of credit card chargeback, ACH reject, and PayPal chargeback of $15 each. Who pays that?
The customer does. Those are like bounce check fees. That's the ACH and electronic payment equivalent of a NSF check fee.
Okay, and then what's this IVR, inbound per call payment only paid by the payer? What's that mean? That's the customer again?
Yes, that's a customer.
And isn't that where they make a phone call and they get in touch with the call center to process their payment for them?
And then there's a continuation, there's another 25-cent fee for a transaction paid by the biller. That's us, right?
Where are you looking?
Well, it's a continuation. It's on page 29. It wraps around and then it goes into the second pricing option.
That's an optional.
And an encrypted card reader, $30 per month per unit. Point of sale card readers. Do you pay for yours, Sarah?
That?
Do you have a card reader that goes on the phone or something for yours?
No, everything is done through IntelliPay, same as
Oh, okay.
it's right now.
So currently, with our current credit card processing company and Invoice Cloud, everything would basically stay the same, except then we pay the $250 a month and the 20 cents per paperless billing if someone signs up for it. If they don't, then we don't pay.
So on the last page, there's an interesting table. On this packet shows that if there's a paperless adoption rate of different percentages, what the projected net monthly savings would be. So based on that, we would need an adoption rate of 62.5% in order to offset the $250 a month in savings. The other thing I just stated as I'm thinking about this is, I know when I call town hall and ask about my bill or want to debate it or whatever, me or anybody else, it's a time suck and it's a pain. And it gets in the way of the other things that are on your to-do list. But it's one of the things I love about Saratoga is that I can pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody,
Talk to Brenda.
to Brenda. If I got a call and get lost in a phone tree and I gotta hit star to go back to the main menu because it's not giving me the answer I want, I'm just gonna walk into town hall and then you're gonna have to deal with me that way. I bet you there's a lot of people that aren't that different.
We kind of want to see you anyway.
So, I don't know, I guess there's something that I think it's just it's a culture, it's a quality of life thing that would be lost if we try to over automate everything.
One of the things that I hadn't thought of before, but if customers call in to get their balance, do we have the option of looking up that balance and giving it to them, or do we have to pass that through their system? Do you know?
No, we can take that.
Yeah. So we could actually keep that hometown convenience. It doesn't have to be put through the system. We still have Cassell, at other people's finger.
But within telepay right now, is it correct that I could still call and give you a credit card number over the phone?
Yes.
It would have to be processed manually, right? I wouldn't be entering
Correct.
the numbers, but I mean, I could still pay by credit card over the phone.
Correct.
Yeah, and same with this, we
Yeah.
could do that too. We could still pay over the phone and not automate that part of it.
The biggest part for me is the human error. I'd welcome you to come down and see the double entries that you have to make and telepay to Cassell. And sometimes it misses a day and you have to go back a day prior, the next day, and make sure you didn't miss anything in the report. And in human error, you enter 6740 and it was 16740.
Right, but the human error element is only going to be eliminated on the people that go full-blown, all electronic automated payment, right?
Right. I mean, you bring a check in and it's still going to be the same thing that we do right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So it goes back to that adoption rate. If we earnestly believe that we were going to have an adoption rate of upwards of 62.5%, 70%, 80% adoption rate, I'd start to understand that we'd be talking about eliminating 62, 75% of human error element, right? But if our adoption rate is only, let's say it's 30%, then our cost savings is only $120 per month, which doesn't offset the cost of the program. And it still leaves 70% of the manual entry the exact way it's being done. And human error is just inherent to that process. It's part of running an accounting department.
We know how many people right now are signed up for just auto pay.
We do, but not off the top of my head. Do you remember?
I want to say around 70.
Because we had to send all that. They came up with these statistics based on what we, the information that we gave them of what our traditional usage is. I don't personally think we're going to have huge adoption rate to go entirely digital. I just can't imagine with this community with that happening. But that's perfectly all right. If we just simply, for those people that have, even if we maintain the status quo and the people that currently pay by credit card continue to pay by credit card, then that just relieves huge issues. I mean, I don't even believe that there's going to be a huge increase in it or a huge adoption of paperless. Just status quo is better.
Right, but if you got 70 that have adopted it now, that's 7%. Right, so this cost savings per month would be $28, $29.
So the 70 also does not include the checks that come from the bank. And so we get a lot of those as well, and that will get intercepted by Invoice Cloud.
Another, how much?
That one I'm not
I
exactly.
mean, it's not 200, right?
Yeah.
Another 20?
Per month, I bet it is.
So they come in big packets.
Yeah, we get quite a few of them. And I've never stopped it. They just, from our perspective, they get processed just the same as a handwritten check, or cash and we just haven't ever stopped to double check them.
So, well, just for the sake of argument, if that number is 500, and that's 50% of your transactions just in those bank generated checks, I have a completely different perception of how effective this would be.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not perceiving it to be tremendously effective. So if that data, if you have that and can demonstrate that, then that would be helpful.
I don't look at this as a way of, as a way of saving a huge amount of money compared to what we're doing now. What I'm looking at is the efficiency on the things that we're doing now. The error trapping, the improved reports, and the data being applied correctly into each, and on a timely basis into each payer's account. That's how I'm looking at it. The $250, I actually had a hard time coming to grips with that. But $250 compared to the amount of time that we can save from busting up the errors that we currently experience, I think is a pretty fair trade-off. It's not going to be a moneymaker, I don't think.
I'm not ready to take any action on this tonight.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. I'm just concerned. That it seems like a meeting or two ago, we agreed to hire a part-time clerk to help with the paperwork and stuff, did we not? So if we get this, do we still need the clerk?
The clerk doesn't have anything to do with this. This actually helps Brenda, which in turn helps us.
Is there a motion to either purchase, not purchase, table?
John asked for additional information. I'd like to
Table?
see what we got.
Motion to table.
Your second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Moving on to, or anything else?
I do have one more thing. I would like permission to hire our new accounting clerk that we interviewed. He stated that she could possibly start October 1st, but I'm hoping maybe she can jump in a little sooner after her background check is approved.
Is this the one we voted on last week? Last meeting?
Last meeting, we did a raise for someone in the rec department.
But at one meeting, they asked for a part-time person, and I believe we approved the hire.
I don't believe for the accounting clerk. I think it was.
We talked about it in budget workshops. We budgeted.
So you need a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion to have the clerk's office hire administrative assistant.
There's motions or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Marie? Okay, moving on to police department.
I've talked with the mayor on this issue too, is about our part-time officers getting the police retirement put into their paycheck.
Yeah, so just to kind of speak on this a little bit. So currently right now, how the part-time officers that are working for us, and we've got two of them here tonight. One of them are working as a Saratoga police officer tonight. Currently how we are set up is the police are working part-time. It's just a straight $21 an hour. And they've asked that the hours that they work that we make a contribution to their retirement. I did have Marie look or contact the folks at the Wyoming retirement system. Currently, our contract is set up with them is not set up to pay for the part-timers' retirement. But it's something that they can change on their end. Couple things that just looking over some of the hours worked. Last fiscal year on overtime hours, we had 840 hours of OT on just our regular officers. I believe roughly in that time, trying to remember, we had one part-time officer worked 393 hours, I believe. One part-time officer worked just under 100 hours. One part-time officer worked 792 hours. So obviously we've been short-staffed for a very long time. And these part-time officers have picked up a ton of extra shifts here and there. And from speaking with a couple of them, that it is maybe standard or acceptable in a lot of other communities that the towns that they're working part-time in will pick up and make a contribution to their retirement. The additional cost on that to the town, Marie, was 14.8%. And right now we're paying them $21 an hour. So that put the rough out of pocket from the town would be just under $24. I think it's $23.90 something.
21 plus 14.8.
Yes. To put it at 24.10, is that what you're getting? So, it was something that, Chief had talked to me about. Some of the part-time officers, had asked, right now, I mean, they're getting paid the same as a officer that we have that's untrained, or not untrained, that's going through training, but is not, post-certified. They're getting paid the same wage as him, or that individual. And that this would be a benefit to the part-timers to help encourage them to continue to pick up part-time shifts. Currently, if one of our officers is working and they're getting paid $24 an hour and they're working overtime at time and a half, that's $36 an hour plus all the other expenses that go with it. So, Pat, John, do you guys have anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Sure. Yeah, it'd just be nice because we do make it the same, and I've been helping train the last two officers. We are both professionally peace certified. I've worked for Saratoga part-time for 7 years now. I've been in law enforcement for 17. The biggest thing would just be nice because it would add into the retirement for after our end of our 20 years. And it'd just help out with, I think I'm probably the one that had the 700 some odd hours last year. And I know I've had several years where I've I'll work day shift at the sheriff's office, then work nights here. And I did that 27 days straight once a couple of years ago and got a little burnt out. So, and this is my first pay raise in 7 years was the one we got this year.
And do you guys use a lot of your own equipment? Is that correct?
We do. The only thing I've got issued from the town is a pair of pants and 2 shirts. Everything else I use is my own. Oh, I do have a vest, but I use my own ballistic plates in it. I use my own weapon, my own bullets, everything like that.
I'm on the opposite. I'm only 5 years in law enforcement, but so it won't necessarily help me right away, but in the future, when I get closer to that 20 years, it'll help. But again, I use all my own equipment, minus a vest that I think Chief's going to talk about here that somebody donated some funds for. But other than that, everything else is purchased by myself.
So if anything happens, we lose our personal weapons for as long as DCI has them and everything like that.
Would that be covered, maybe under line item, since we can't seem to hire more police officers that cover that?
It'd still become not a salaries,
Yeah.
the salaries and benefits.
Here's how I look at it, is we've got a schedule that we gotta cover. And we've got experienced, trained officers that are filling in, I mean, regardless of whether they're part-time, full-time, 700 hours, 20 hours a year. I think that their pay ought to be commensurate with what their experience is and what they're bringing to town to protect the town. So I don't have any objection to making a contribution to the retirement and making that adjustment. I guess that aside, I think there's something serious that we need to be talking about when it comes to how much outside support, overtime we're utilizing and what's broken in the department. And I don't take this the wrong way. I sincerely appreciate stepping up and being available for putting in the shifts when we need you guys to help us cover. But we shouldn't be having to ask part-timers to do thousands of hours a year. So.
Mr. Mayor, is there, I'm totally 100% behind it too. Is there money budgeted for it?
Yeah, so, I mean, this would fall under salaries and the pension fund. We budgeted to have 5 full-time officers on, and we looked at what our projected salaries was gonna be from last year. And we budgeted to meet right at that number. And then that fills in the blanks below for payroll benefits, health insurance, pension fund. With part-timers, there wouldn't be any health insurance, so there wouldn't be that cost in there to have them cover shifts.
If we're paying a full-time officer that's employed directly with the town, $21 an hour, that additional $3.10 an hour for the retirement is going to be built into what their wage is. So again, I don't see any problem. It seems very, very fair to me, and it's just I think we can make that change. To your point about, is it budgeted? I think as long as we have a base salary of $21 budgeted for those hours throughout the year, it's budgeted, right? And to Creed's point, there probably isn't even some savings below that because we're not paying on those guys for the health insurance, for example. So I'm confident, without having to look at the spreadsheet, that as long as the total hours worked in a year isn't excessive, that by making this change, we're not going to overrun the salaries line item budget.
That would have been my only concern if that would have happened.
But
if it can happen, I think it's a great idea. I mean, these guys are giving up some of their free time. Of course, it's benefiting them too, but
sure.
For them to go out.
And right now, I mean, and I don't know if I have the year to date on our officers, but for instance, if Sergeant Christian's working, he's getting paid at a higher rate, and he's accumulating overtime, and we're still paying retirement and all that for him. So if they were working at 21, there might be some actual cost savings there. Plus, I know Chief can talk about the department. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that will work days and days and days and days and not have a day off to help cover some of that. So it would help. I think it would help with burnout.
You put them in jeopardy then because their guard's down and they're tired and they get burnt out. So I think it's great if you can compensate them in that way.
Between the hours you mentioned, right, somebody that had 792, somebody that had 393, somebody had less than 100, plus 840 overtime on our guys. That's a full-time, because that's almost exactly 20,080 a year.
Yeah,
It's a full-time position,
no, I think it's fantastic.
so.
So I could just speak about Sergeant Christian. So in the month of June, I was on maternity leave. Sergeant Moore was on vacation. He worked Sergeant Christian. Sergeant Moore was on vacation. I was on maternity leave, and Sergeant Christian worked 27 days straight, 325 hours-ish. I don't know what he gets paid for a month, but I'm sure that's nowhere near a lot of overtime in a month.
It is. So, well, you get burned out.
Every month after that, and before that, Christian gets days off. He's got 4 coming up next week with the other part-time officer.
I would imagine these guys probably want to take a vacation too. You don't have nobody to fall back on the part. I mean, it's a nice way to compensate them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think it's deserved, and I'd even allow him to keep that pair of pants for the buttons.
Is there a motion to move forward, making the contribution to part-time police officers' retirement when they're working for the town of Saratoga?
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up, Chief.
Next one is about this, the vest invoice. Dr. Hanson's is willing to pay the invoice to help, donate so that we can get the vest. Means, we put in for the grant, but we don't know the status of the grant. That's what the confusion was last time. For the town to just write the check, pay for the vest, and then we wait for the grant. But this gentleman is willing, to pay the invoice so that these officers can get rid of these expired vests they've been wearing.
Okay, and I believe at the last council meeting, it was a question of that it hadn't been budgeted, I think. And Dr. Jansen had contacted me. He'd read an article on Bigfoot 99, I think it was, or in the Saratoga paper regarding that, and asked, is there a way that they could do a donation or whatnot? And I told him to get in touch with Chief. So
If you got a copy of the invoice, so he knows the amount on that.
Appreciate his generous donation. Thank you very much, Tim.
anything else, Chief?
Oh, the new officer is currently doing his 2-week online training here. We and they're with him today. I had proctor his test as he goes along, and if he passes all these tests, and then he will leave Sunday night to go up to Douglas and go from there.
Yeah. One other thing was the bonding.
Oh, yeah, I haven't figured the amount. That was something that I guess I didn't realize that every officer had to be bonded. I thought it was just, well, it used to be, your notaries had to go up and get a bond. I had to have a bond. But evidently there's been, I think Jane can attest to that. I guess all the officers have to have a bond on them. And I don't know what exactly how much of a bond to put on everybody and whatever. So I don't have a total amount, but that was not even budgeted because we didn't even know about it at the time of the budget.
Okay. Well, if you want to look into costs on that and talk about that at the next meeting. Okay. If there's nothing else for the police department, we'll move on to the fire department. Before using invoice from FireCat Precision Service Testing. This was the hose testing we did here week and a half ago. And this is to get all our hose tested. We had one piece fail. Out of, I don't know how many. Well, we got 10,850 foot of hose and we had one stick fail. So this was part of what we budgeted for our annual testing. Here in, I think, 2 weeks, we have our pump test. And this information is important because we have to have this to submit to ISO for our ISO rating. So So is there a motion to approve the invoice for $3,472 for FireCat?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Other than that, fire department wise, we're still training, every Wednesday. We did have three calls, wildland calls, last week. Other than that, it's been pretty slow. So hopefully we can get through the rest of the summer season without any other wildland fires. Moving on to rec department.
So for the gym, our hours of operation have changed a little. We are open from Monday to Thursday, 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Fridays from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. We will be closed on Fridays when there is no school, as the gym is rented out to County Six Dance. Our fitness classes, we will start those up again for September. We have Rock Solid Fitness, Morning Mashup, Low Impact Kids Group, and Qigong. The schedule is posted on the main door, the town website, and the Facebook page. We still have middle school volleyball going on. Evening open gyms are the same. And just a reminder that anyone under the age of 16 is not allowed in the gym unsupervised. We did have an incident on Friday, September 2nd, where we had some unsupervised children in there for a period of time, and it kind of caused some chaos for the janitor. So we won't be doing that anymore. The gym will be locked. The pool, I feel like we had a great season overall. I can't thank my lifeguards enough, including Cindy Carnes, who came in a little late so we could keep this pool open a little longer. Fitness classes will continue through this Friday. And then we've scheduled with Public Works to begin winterizing the pool the week of September 12th. Youth activities, we have flag football starting on September 19th. We are still looking for volunteers, so anybody who would like to volunteer with the flag football program. Season runs from September 19th to October 12th. Our online current registration is currently down, but I should have that up by the end of the week. Our fall festival is scheduled for October 1st and 2nd. The Kids Carnival 5K and chili cook-off will be held at Veterans Island on Saturday, October 1st, and October 2nd, we will be at Flat Valley Community Center for the pickleball tournament. We have received an email notifying us of the Carbon County School District number 2 rec board grant, and I would like to ask the mayor to sign the agreement. The rec board grant is for a total of $13,800. It will cover open gym supervisors, pool chemicals and supplies, lifeguard certification and training, and pool equipment for activities. This is a voucher program, so we will get back what we put into it. So they'll pay up to $13,000.
Make the motion to approve, allow the mayor to sign the PCSD 2 rec board grant application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is all I have for my report. The Recreation Commission board meeting, next board meeting is Monday, September 12th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall.
Okay. Moving on to Public Works.
Mayor and council members, on the agenda here, we have 2 items. One of them is covered in my report. The first one is weed and pest fee citizen reimbursement. I had an individual come in to my office and had requested to be reimbursed on weed and pest fee because we did not use fixed wing to spray the town. This individual, they live outside of town. We have about 5 people, I believe. We tried to figure that out, 5 individuals that pay a weed and pest that are not within the town limits. So that was the basis for that individual's request. Council, I mean, we do not drive out there, the fogger, and get these one or two individuals that actually are out of town limits that do pay for the weed and pest. So when we do spray with a fixed wing in the past, that property would have been covered because of the attempts to hit stuff to the west end of town. But because we haven't had success of getting a fixed wing in the last couple of years, we haven't done that. So I guess my stance is the council can decide if they wish to reimburse or not, but my recommendation is that we don't have anybody outside of town be able, or just not have them pay the weed and pest, and then that way we don't have to, worry about whether an out-of-town resident is getting covered by weed and pest.
Is the weed and pest, that fee includes more than just the airplane spraying though, right?
Well, it
It includes all your testing, all of the,
But we don't do any weed stuff outside of town. We don't do any fogging outside of town. The only thing that really comes into play is when we do spray with a plane, it's because of the wind direction, the attempt to try to control mosquitoes that are west of town that have a tendency to come into town. That's where they would normally have gotten some treatment, in their area, and because we didn't do that.
How long of a reimbursement are they asking for?
I think just a year.
This calendar year?
They said they didn't bring it up to last year because last year we didn't spray with the plane either, but this year was the year that they're bringing it up. So it's $45.
I guess if they live out of town, how are they getting charged a weed and pest fee?
Well, they can get, they used to get trash and all that stuff, but there are certain people that live out of town that have town bills. People that live across from Shively's get a sewer bill because they tap into the sewer there. And so there are, like I said, a handful, not very many. There are a handful that are out of town that do get town bills.
So
And some get them like the ones that are out north of town. Some of them don't pay a weed and pest. So it's kind of a hit and miss. It's there. I think they pay it because they liked it when we did have a spray program and it would be covered, and so they happily paid their bill.
it's $375 a month, right? We're not talking about tremendous amount of revenue. I think if they're not getting a service, then there's an argument to not have to pay the bill. My brain went the same place as how do we have the authority to send somebody a bill who's outside the town limits? If they're connected to the water and sewer system, clearly a different situation. We're doing billing on behalf of the Water and Sewer Powers Board. They're on the system. But the landfill is different, right? When the town did the billing for the landfill district, we're billing for everybody within Saratoga and like the north half of the district out of town limits. So
Councilman Nelson, I'd have to check. I do not believe there are maybe a handful that are just a weed and pest. Like I said, there are some that have water service, so they get a bill from that, or a sewer service and stuff like that. But as far as strictly weed and pest, there can't be but a handful. I can certainly research that and find exactly. I think I counted 5, if I remember right. And some of them that they don't care.
I'm a little uneasy making the blanket motion without having the actual, but it's gotta be just, it's gotta be just a few. I would think we would treat all of them the same. And I guess what I would propose is that we correct the billing issue moving forward. That I don't know that I'm convinced to entertain a reimbursement, but certainly moving forward to not be billing those outside town limits for weed and pest.
So did they opt in?
I think that's basically what it is. I think they recognize that if they paid their bills, that maybe we would make sure that they were covered when we did an aerial application. And it's oftentimes kind of difficult to stop an aerial application from when the property is just adjoining the town limits. So that's one way they could, say, we've been paying our bills, so let's make sure we get some applications, some coverage over our property.
So next year, if we get a plane, then do we send them a bill for the whole year? I guess that's,
No, and if we get a plane, we will typically, we typically will do a west and a north swath outside of town limits, and it's primarily because that's where the mosquitoes are, in essence. The irrigated airfields is where we see a lot of that. And so they'll get covered, but neither do the people that we spray over that don't have a bill. The whole intent and the whole purpose is to obviously try to control the population numbers. And if you can control them in those two areas, then that just supplements what we're doing in town.
I don't think we have the authority to be sending them a bill for weed and pest. That's
I guess I just don't see
Comes
how
down to
we,
that, so.
yeah, if they're hooked to water or sewer, totally different, but for weed and pests, I don't see why.
When we were doing billing for landfill, clearly they were in landfill district allocations going to water and sewer, but now it's just weed and pest. We're just getting a bill for $375 a month. Then we correct that billing issue.
That would be my recommendation.
And back to the point, if we do get a plane,
They get the benefit, but it also benefits the town and it's mutually beneficial.
It does. Killing mosquitoes is killing mosquitoes.
going half a section or section, whatever, out past town limits benefits the town. So,
Oh, yeah.
So be it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ron, do you run? Any thoughts?
No.
So, John, do you just want to get with them?
Well,
Get with Marie and,
I guess the question is, they just won't get billed for that anymore. But, the request for reimbursement is council and some statements, no or yes. Up to you guys.
I mean, look, if we send somebody an erroneous bill and we billed them $500 when it should have been $375, I would clearly want to make that correction, but I think now that's just being brought to our attention. We can make a decision tonight and correct it moving forward, but what's in the past is in the past, and I don't think it's probably more than a $40 problem for them, so hopefully they'll accept that, because we'll make it right moving forward. Everybody else feel different?
yeah, I concur with that.
Thank you. The other one that's on the agenda item is the request for the purchase some more meter pits. Purchase 6 of them, $1,000. These we're seeing a lot of activity. So we're putting 7 or 8 this fiscal year. Got 5 in inventory with, I think, 4 scheduled and 3 additional ones that people have told us they might be coming up in the next couple of months. So we need to purchase some of those, more of those meter pits.
What's the lead time on those, John?
They're really actually not too bad. I think we can get them in about 3 weeks. But they were budget 20 to 22 in this fiscal year. budgeted $30,000 specifically for that purpose.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
As far as streets helped our sewer and water crew quite a bit. As we know, our sewer and water crew's down to a couple guys, so we had a couple meter pits, a couple sewer and water taps up on Elm Street that were very deep and took a lot of time and effort to get those done. We also had a water saddle repair over on Rochester that ended up being quite the task, starting on one side of the street all the way across before we found out it was a corroded and saddle. That was the problem. Got those fixed, but the streets crew is stepping up and helping those guys off with hauling off muck and helping them with fill materials and getting those repaired. I did complete some patchwork at various locations in town. Continue to have a fair amount of time in cleaning the bathrooms, both at the lake and at the town bathrooms here at the parking lot up at Catholic Load. Quite a bit of effort goes in there. And we did, after approval in July, we did receive 31.5 tons of ice melt, and we still have another one that will probably be delivered in the next couple of weeks, which will obviously set us up real well for when the white stuff starts flying. Just as far as the Spring Avenue, the 3rd and Spring intersection tie-ins to the northwest and south, the existing 6-inch water main is complete. Those stormwater needs to be tied in on that intersection. Remaining work on the intersection is the valley pans and the asphalt. Get that up, road base prep for the asphalt. It installed about 80 water lines, 3rd Street. Dewatering continues, and as you can see outside, they installed one well. They'll install another one on the other side of their 1st Street on Spring to dewater for when they start the boring underneath the street, underneath the highway. The boring machine was scheduled to be here today. Hopefully it'll show up tomorrow. But Lewis & Lewis has all the DOT right-of-way license for that, and the WDEQ type of discharge general permit for that activity. But as I talked to the mayor earlier today, our next meeting with TO and Lewis & Lewis will be Thursday. And we already have a pretty full schedule on things that we need to talk to Lewis & Lewis about as far as scheduling and getting prepared, being in some more advanced planning process. And some of the things that we're getting up, such as being in front of the fire department when we get there, how we cross services, fire hydrants, and access for certain residences and certain businesses. Talked about West Elm taps. Said I put 3 up to Overlook. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 already scheduled now for taps. Good news is we have received 2 applications, so we'll be interviewing those in the next week, and maybe hopefully by next council meeting I can come with a proposal to hire an individual and start that process. Like I said, we're down 2 in that group. As far as weed and pest, last night at fogging was August 22nd. We continue to do some mowing in and around town ROWs and at the lake and the parks. See, as far as the lake, the only thing really going down as far as the lake, besides cleaning of the bathrooms and trying to do that, is the 19th, the date that the Game and Fish is going to do the rotenone treatment on the lake. And then a lot of the efforts, a lot of the time with the streets crew especially, is we just finished up putting in an all new irrigation system at Good Times Park. That's get that all completed, they'll fire it up tomorrow on coverage and make sure they get some coverage, let it run for probably a week and then go back and probably fill in the trenches where they settled. That pops all over. Just fill in the trenches and sparse spots in the park and then seed it. So take care of the large maintenance item we had for that park in the last couple of years as far as fixing. That's what I had.
Ron, did you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay. How are we coming on, getting a list of priorities for streets for repair?
That list. Ron and I drove around. Good afternoon, and we narrowed it down to certain areas that we should pick from as far as doing any kind of treatment. Probably top 3 areas that we've seen in a few spot areas. Those are the ones that we've looked at and talked about as far as what we do. You know, the resources on some of them will be more of a challenge because they're bigger blocks of areas such as the Inn or at Granby. So, but yeah, got less numbers, distances, and everything.
Yeah, so I think our plan was at the next council meeting, we'd have a list of priorities the way we see them. And we'll give you our criteria for priorities and then a rough quantity takeoff for it so we can put a price against each area. You know, that we have a budget, some money budgeted this year and then and we'll go over it with the council at the next meeting and go from there.
Okay. All right, moving on to reports from boards and commissions. Community Center Joint Powers Board's next meeting is September 12th at 4:30 at the High Valley Community Center. Water and Sewer Joint Powers Board.
I don't have any updates for the council since our last council meeting. Our next joint powers board meeting will be September 14th, 6 p.m. at the PVCC.
Moving on to Planning Commission, lot on Hickory and First. So notice was sent out the week before our last council meeting. The individual there did not pick up the mail, or he picked up the notice on, I believe it was on August 23rd, if I remember correctly. They had 10 days to notify the town. I think Ron's been in contact with him.
Yep, talked to him again this afternoon. The conversation this afternoon is he was approached by additional people that said that they would like to have the trees transplanted out of there and the whole thing about waiting till they go dormant. I told him that at this point in time, that there was no plan to use any of those trees in the park and that we would discuss it at the council meeting tonight, and I'd send him a text and confirm that none of those trees are needed for the park. I would note that the individual was extremely good friends with Tyler. They were actually roommates, and he was wanting to donate some of the trees to the park, even just for personal reasons too. But maybe we can make other arrangements there and get those weeds cleaned out. But that's where it's at.
Was it discussed that the lot could be cleaned and all the weeds could be taken down and the trees could be? I mean, nothing's saying that they can't have a tree on the lot.
Right. So.
Right? I mean, we're not instructing him to clear cut the lot, including all trees, right? Just clean up all the debris, rusty concrete, piles of whatever, and all the weeds, right?
Yep.
That's, and Jane, maybe you can speak to it. if he has 30 days to abate, is that from when he picked up his notice at the mail?
I would have to look at the language of the ordinance to confirm that. Sometimes it's the date of the letter, sometimes it's the date that it's received, but the ordinance should tell you that.
Okay.
I don't have those in front of me.
Like I said, if I recall, the letter was sent out the 11th or the 12th. The number that's sticking in my head on when he received it was the 23rd. There's 30 days to abate after receiving the letter. That would be here in September 22nd by my count. And I believe this was the same issue that was given notice to last year with the same individual on the same property. I guess the question B is, if he does not abate, then what we do from there going forward? I believe it's the nuisance ordinance. The town can come in and abate it and then send them an invoice or something to that effect. But I'd have to dig into that further, probably ask Jane. So. Other than that, the planning commission, I don't have anything new to report. Our next meeting is September 13th at 5:30 here at Town Hall. Saratoga Airport Advisory Board.
Can I just get a clarification from our conversation at the last meeting? Obviously, the sign variance will be, I don't know if it's on the agenda or whatever, but the question was whether or not members of the public should attend that meeting and will be heard on that issue next Tuesday, or if the next council meeting will be their opportunity to be heard.
So I did email Lindy, who's the secretary for the planning commission, and did request that be put on the agenda to be further discussed. And I will take the comments from D-Ron asking for more information from the entire planning commission. Like I said, we had two members that weren't there, so will be discussed there further. My anticipation is that the planning commission will make another recommendation, either in favor or not in favor for the to the council. And we will revisit it the following council meeting.
I guess, just, even though there won't be a formally advertised scheduled hearing for it at the next planning commission meeting, members of the public will still be heard at that meeting.
I would assume so. It will be another public meeting. Like I said, I don't know, or I know there's a lot of stuff on the agenda for that night, but I would certainly think that the chair would allow everyone to voice their concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Saratoga Airport Advisory Board.
Okay, in front of you, you have two ASA 018X state projects fully funded by YDOT. There's no town match, and it should close out those invoices that you have attached. Just need a motion for the mayor to sign both of these. One of them will be at 100%, and the other one will still have 75% completed to date.
Did you make the motion?
No, I didn't. I can.
I make a motion that we sign these and return them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And as far as, I just checked my emails, I don't have anything that shows the completion of the entrance road project right now. I haven't received that this week. I did get an email from Josh Donald with Sage that says that the airport will probably be closed for 2 days on September 26th and 27th for permanent markings. Again, we're working with Larry and the police department to make sure everyone knows that when the airport's closed. As you can see, some of the work has been done. If you saw the new fence on the exterior, that's going well. So, but again, I don't have the project completion percentages or completion date this week yet. The next meeting will be September 12th, 3:30 here at Town Hall.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Next up is Schwimm's.
So on our list, we have two resolutions. Both are to purchase ambulances. The only difference is one is a slip And the other one is the USDA Emergency Healthcare Funds. And the USDA will pay 55% of the cost of an ambulance in Hannah, in Medicine Bell. And currently, the ambulances are 2 years out, so hopefully we will have a delivery date of 2024. And so I guess the idea is that if we were to be granted these grants, then Schwinn's would pay for, let me see here, I believe 50% of the ambulance that will be stationed down here in this. And so the cost of an ambulance is about $290,000. And that includes the radios, monitor mounts, stretcher, loading unit, graphics, narcotics locker, and 4x4, 450 chassis and bumper. So that's what those are.
Okay. Do the resolutions have to be read in full? Jane, do you know that?
I don't know off the top of my head. It wouldn't hurt though.
Okay. Well, resolution number 2022-08, a resolution authorizing submission of a federal mineral royalty capital construction account grant on behalf of the South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services for the purpose of purchasing an ambulance. Whereas South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services Joint Powers Board, SWIMS, desires to participate in the Federal Mineral Royalty Capital Construction Account Grant Program to assist in financing this request. And whereas South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services Joint Powers Board recognizes the need for the request, and whereas the Federal Mineral Royalty Capital Construction Account Grant Program requires that certain criteria be met as described in the State Loan and Investment Board's rules and regulations governing the program. And to the best of our ability, and to the best of our knowledge, this application meets those criteria. And whereas the participating in this program would add value to the South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services and state-of-the-art capabilities to the residents served, be it resolved, we, the participating agencies of the South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services grant and grant the authorities to participate in the State of Wyoming State Land and Investment Board Federal Mineral Royalty Capital Construction Account Grant Program, accepting grant monies offered and all other necessary requirements to fulfill this grant process. Now, therefore, the town of Saratoga, Wyoming resolves to participate in the State Land Investment Board Federal Mineral Royalty Capital Construction Grant or Account Grant Program, passed and approved and adopted this 6th September.
Motion to sign.
Second.
All in favor? Moving on to resolution number 2022-10. Resolution authorizing the submission of an emergency rural healthcare grant on behalf of South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services for the purpose of purchasing an ambulance. Whereas South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services Joint Powers Board desires to participate in the United States Department of Agricultural Rural Development Emergency Rural Health Care Grant Program to assist in financing this request. And whereas South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services Joint Powers Board recognizes the need for this request. And whereas the Emergency Rural Health Care Grant Program requires that certain criteria be met as described in the USDA Rural Development Application Guide governing the program. And to the best of our knowledge, this application meets those criteria. And whereas participating in this program would add value to South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services and state-of-the-art capabilities to the residents served, be it resolved, we, the participating agencies of the South Central Wyoming Emergency Medical Services grant the authorities to participate in the United States Department of Agricultural Rural Development Emergency Rural Health Care Grant, accepting grant monies offered and all other necessary requirements to fulfill this grant process. Now, therefore, Town of Saratoga, Wyoming resolves to participate in the Emergency Rural Health Care Grant Program, passed, approved, and adopted this 6th day of September 2022.
Motion to sign.
Second was discussion.
Okay, discussion?
On both of these resolutions in the bold print up top, emergency is spelled incorrectly, so could we get the mayor to have a clean copy
Yes.
for both of those, please?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
The next is, there is a training that will be put on by Highway Patrol. It's called the, let's see, Responder Training Program 10, I guess. September 19 at 6 p.m. Let's see. Oh, it is in Saratoga. There are two different classes. One is from 8 to 12. The other one is from 1 to, I'm good with military time, 5. And I believe it is at the community center. Is that right, Staten?
That's correct.
That's on the 8th.
Yes, and I believe this would be great for police, fire department.
I did send that on to fire chief and our training officers.
And then the only other thing is there are 5 students that passed their EMT practical. So they'll be taking their written test in the next few weeks, I believe. And that'll be here on the south side, that 5 of the students will be EMTs. And then our next meeting is September 19th, 6 p.m. in Elk Mountain.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Moving on to new business, council vacancy. Today, we've only had one letter of interest from Kathy Beck, who joins us tonight. I did speak with Kathy, and I did speak with Jane about this. At the last meeting, there was some confusion maybe on how the state statutes were written. I think Jane had spoke with the head guy at the state, and
I spoke with both Gwen Bartlett and Kai Schoen, the Secretary of State's office election director, about it, yes.
And so I think he'd acknowledged maybe that the state statutes weren't written well. As we can all know here from town ordinances, some of them aren't written perfectly or whatnot, but I think after speaking with him and Gwen, that Jane is comfortable moving forward with appointing the vacancy on the council seat through the rest of the term. I believe that's what you and
That's right.
discussed.
Yeah, this vacancy would be appointed through the remaining term. So through I think it's through the end of 2024 is when the seat would have been up. So the appointment would be made through then, yes.
Okay. I guess I've asked the council, would you prefer to speak with Kathy privately in executive session, or I know Kathy said she was open to answering any questions in a public forum. What's the council's thoughts? Or does anyone have any questions, and are they ready to move forward with an appointment?
And do you have anything, I mean, we received your letter, read your letter. Do you have anything to share with us or reiterate tonight? Thanks for being here.
Sure. I've called the Valley home for 20 plus years. A lot of people I care about here, care about what we have to offer as a town community. And I've been given the opportunity recently with work. I work from my home. Previously with my work pre-COVID, I was traveling a lot. So I've lived in my home for 15 plus years, and I finally get to be at home now. So I'm getting more involved in the community. I was a teacher here for many years, been in the community choir and done that type of activity. Recently got more involved with the rec commission, joined the rec commission and the joint power board to really, I want to be able to share what I love about the community with people outside of our community and make it a nicer place for the people here. So I'm just interested, really that's my motivation. Don't own a business here. Just want to be part of doing something cool for the community.
You're on some other boards and commissions.
Yeah, the rec commission and the joint power board for the community center. So I could potentially serve in that position and open it to a new community member. If I'm assigned that responsibility, I could be a council rep for those.
Anyone else have any questions for Kathy? Is there a motion to appoint Kathy to the town council?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? So, congratulations, Kathy. I believe Marie will turn off an oath in office. Do we want to do that now or after executive session or?
We're here.
Marie, could you print that off real quick? We'll do that real quick. While she's doing that, is there anything else for new business? Okay, as soon as we get that, we'll get you sworn in and your term on the council will begin. What's that?
Is it on the printer?
Is it? So why don't I just take a quick 5-minute break? And we'll come back and do that swearing.
My house and I went together to degree that questions. It was
I'm Richard Hodges. Would you like to comment?
I think so. I would. She's already, we can ask. It's personal action form. Okay. So, yeah, that's, I don't know how that works.
For interpretation of the statutes and I understand.
I feel like a small guy.
Your understanding.
Me too. Given the timing of the resignation.
I want to do a Thursday and Friday.
Signs.
Oh,
Well, you know.
Somebody.
I thought it was interesting.
I would like John. I really would.
I'm going to send it.
Your office.
Let me make an accountable. I just need to take a chunk of time and sit down here. I mean, because I have to put ads up. And she mentioned filling out the registration. Do we want to
Upstairs.
together? We want to try to figure out.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Get to meet just from the alley. Back in the building.
All right.
But
You got a sign?
Not yet. Working on it. We'll get there.
rules out, and I've got some like links to YouTube and other places to put on our website so that people can see how to play it, you know, like the basic stuff. And I, it's a voicemail, organization, Football Association out of Wyoming to see if maybe they can help us coordinate and stuff. Or maybe maybe come over and do a clinic and participate or something, you know? So we'll see about that, but, question like combining them and saying, keeping them separate, the activities, or combining them, saying if you group them together, if you sign up for 5K and that and chili or whatever, and I would just keep them separate. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
And I was
I wonder if
surprised.
there's a way she can like still make it to where they can add an only paper time.
Yeah.
So I think
Let's ask that.
that's one thing.
It makes it easier to check out, right? Sure. Yeah, well, let's just see.
What do you find Sunday?
Right, what I was gonna tell you. Yeah, Sunday's good.
Would Sunday be?
Yeah, Sunday's good. Yeah, because, and I might try to get some business up this week.
I'm available. Nine, I'll be there because water aerobics and Friday morning after water aerobics because of our adults still. But anytime after 9.
Oh, for her to read? Yeah.
My stitches, I've gotten most of my stitches out. I've been like picking up. I'm like, I can't get to it. I can't see it. I can't bend over the front. Yeah, I'm definitely be there Thursday, Friday, so just let me know. We'll catch up.
Was that presumptuous of me to let him keep the?
You should have seen Martin. You should have seen Martin, the new cop, the first day. Like, it looked like he was wearing pants that like was fit Ron, and he was not Ron son. They were big.
Goes down. I said, I get the sinking chair.
No, I have the one that goes down.
No, it
Keeps
might
going.
go all the way down.
So,
You can put it in shorter.
This one. I'll load this one.
okay, if we got everyone back in here, we'll go ahead and do the oath of office real quick.
As I reach my pocket, phone is in my other pocket.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kathy Duck, having been appointed councilwoman of the town of Saratoga,
Having been appointed councilwoman of the town of Saratoga,
in said county and state, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States,
in said county and state, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the state,
that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity,
that I have not paid or contributed or promised to pay or contribute,
that I have not paid or contributed or promised to pay or contribute,
either directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing to procure my position,
either directly or indirectly, any money or other valuable thing to procure my position,
except for necessary and proper expenses expressly authorized by law,
except for necessary and proper expenses expressly authorized by law,
that I have not knowingly violated any election office law of the state,
that I have not knowingly violated any election office law of the state,
or procured it to be done by others in my behalf,
or procured it to be done by others in my behalf,
that I will not knowingly receive directly or indirectly
that I will not knowingly receive directly or indirectly
any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty
any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty
pertaining to my office other than the compensation allowed by law.
pertaining to my office other than the compensation allowed by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hold up.
And she runs away. Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Kathy. Okay, if there's not any other new business, is there a motion to enter executive session?
motion to enter executive session to discuss personnel and matters of litigation in accordance with Wyoming statute 16-4-405A 2 and 3.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gotta wait. Yeah.
Back.